some stuff here I'm just gonna briefly gloss over, because again, this book was written in the 1930s. It's very old. A lot of the stuff you just use it basically, but the whole point of these videos, you being a smart person for watching these videos, is because I emphasize on the specifically important stuff, because this is really what you need to know. And a lot of the knowledge that can be gained, I expand that stuff. So admitting that you're wrong is the next thing, and admitting that you're wrong will give more credibility to the other person, so it won't, again, hurt his ego as much. So relating to the past thing of showing respect for other people, never saying that the other person is wrong, because that will make the other person see you more highly in his eyes. So the example that God, I keep messing up his name. It's not Robert Greene, it's Dale Carnegie. Yeah, there we go. So Dale Carnegie, he says he gives like a policeman example. I don't like that example because it's kind of weird. So I'll give a different example. Let's say you were at a 9-to-5 job. McDonald's, I don't know, Chick-fil-A, whatever you work at. It's a corporate store, an eye doctor, or, you know, some restaurant. And let's say you, or maybe some like Walmart or whatever the heck. Let's say you accidentally went over time. So you, instead of having your 8 hours, you went past. And usually employers really don't like that stuff, because then you have to pay you more. Instead of just waiting for your employer to say, well, you know, I actually went over time, and your employer being like, why did you do this? Instead, you take your fearfulness and you shove it up one of your places, and you embrace fearlessness. So you need fearlessness for this. In order to do this, you need fearlessness. But what you do is you walk up to your employer and you start saying, sir, I can't do this anymore. It's the only time that we can have a little bit of a victim's mentality. The reason being is I'll explain. But usually we don't have this victim's mentality because, again, we're superior humans. We're high value people. We have to embrace the tough times, and we have to be stoic, and we have to actually, you know, destroy stuff. But if you're watching stuff like this, you probably have no problem. I'm not even gonna, there's no need for, you know, inspiring you. Like, if you're watching stuff like this, you're on the right path 100%. Keep going, bro. But what you do is you walk up to your boss and you start saying, like, you know, I'm so sorry, I'm such a retard, I'm such a, you know, stupid person, I can't do this, this is just stupid, you know, and because it's gonna catch the other man off guard. If it's a manager, especially if it's women who are a little bit more emotional, again, not all, but most, on average, is they're gonna be like, well, that's a strange, you know, person. Yeah, I've never had that happen to me. Why is he all of a sudden, you know, breaking down here, or, you know, she or whatever, whoever the employee is, and you're saying, you know, well, I can't do this, and it basically makes the other person, in fact, more empathetic, because it will make them say, well, you know, it's fine, I know looks like this person is having a hard time, maybe you know, it's okay, and they'll, on contrary, instead of yelling at you, they'll probably start calming you down, and they'll say, well, it's okay, it's fine, you know, especially in America. Like, I don't know what it is about America, people are just, like, so nice here, and they're like, oh, it's okay, you, like, coming from personal experience, again, if you go to, like, Russia or Moscow or any place, like, you know, I don't know about other countries, but that won't slide. Only in America, use that luxury. Use it or lose it. Yeah, that's what it is. Look at how straight I'm sitting up. Yeah, now you straighten up because you need to fix your posture. And I'm really appreciative that you have the attention span to watch this video to this moment. If you're still watching, thank you. But I'll give you a very good psychological tip now, because you've been such a legend. So this tip by Dale Carnegie it's actual psychology. It's very interesting. It's to get the other person saying yes, yes immediately. What does that mean? That means that if you are even in an argument, you have to make the other person say things, or you have to say things that the other person would agree on. So let's say in my previous example, we're debating, that's what I did basically. Debating about Tate. And I said stuff that the other person, who is a liberal by nature, would agree with. So, like, you know, that it's a lot of the problems are in the men, and a lot of the problems that are arising, it's not the women's problems, not their fault. And he would say yes, yes, so psychologically tricks his brain to think that I'm his friend, and in return he will automatically agree with a lot of stuff that I say. Use that in, for example, coworkers. But next, what you can do is you can also have the safety valve in handling people. What this is you let the people vent. So what happens is you start talking to the person, and let's say they have something on their mind that they gotta say, and you basically make them feel more superior, and you let them talk it out, because once they're vented, they'll actually start listening to you and to what you have to say. There's an interesting quote that, well, it's a funny quote. If you want friends, then make them excel you. They're not friends. That's kind of bullshit. I'm not even gonna talk that. Okay, that's not friendship. That's some nonsense. Maybe in the sense of you'll try to thrive to your friends, but then you can just get older friends. Like, for example, for me, what I did when I was in high school and stuff, I usually would aim for friends that are older than me. So when I was, let's say, when I was like 17, I would aim to find friends who are like 18, 19. When I was 18, I would aim to get friends who are about, let's say, like even earlier. When I was 16, I had a friend who was 18. He was finishing high school, and I would go to the job he works and I would interact with him and I would absorb this environment. And that made me have a little bit more of an understanding to what's coming up. That made me realize a lot more stuff. So again, cool stuff like that, which helps you improve. That's what real friendship is. How you can get cooperation of other people. Where you can do this is you can make the person feel the idea is his or hers. So let's say it's a manager. And again, this is super close to the first law in the 48 laws of power. Never outshine your master. Make the master feel like the ideas are his or her. So if you have a manager, you can kind of suggest and poke around the idea and make the manager of, let's say, your job, or let's say a client, if it's in the sense of business, feel like the ideas is his or hers. It will boost their ego against. It's the opposite of getting in an argument and destroying somebody's ego. So is it quite also like, because people like to consult, so people like to consult and they like to discuss, is this rather feminine? Yes, it is a feminine feature. But you will be surprised, I'm telling you, even firefighters, from my personal experience, they are like supposed to be masculine men, and they are. But they gossip and talk about so much stuff that it's probably even worse than women sometimes. We're made like this with humans, you know? We have to socialize, and we're social creatures. We need other people's opinion and thought and maybe attention. And, their opinion on stuff. The reason that oceans are so big is because, and so massive and so deep, is not because they're at the top of everybody, but because they're at the bottom. So they collect all the rain coming from the sky, they collect all the streams from the mountains, all the pond water, everything flows in the ocean. That's why the ocean is so huge and powerful. You can apply the same exact principle in your day-to-day life. You have to be at the bottom of things. You're like the core thing. I think it's law 11 in the 48 laws of power. You have to be irreplaceable to your company, to your business, to anything you are. And the way you can do this is you can be at the bottom of things. So you can be like that core of, the heart of the operation, if you'd say. Next, try to see things from the other person's point of view. I'm not even going to elaborate on this one. That's it. Because remember, a lot of the people around you, they're just as confused and frightened and afraid of the world and all that stuff as you are. You're not the exception. Some people are just more or less. And the perfect example for this is on my first day of college a while back. I went in, and I'm just, I've never been to this college. And I'm coming in and I'm walking around, but I'm just confident because I know that, again, this is like the stuff, I'll go into it a little bit later. Maybe I'll make a full confidence guide, but I'm walking around and I know that I'm at the top of my game. I'm genuinely doing my best in life in all parameters, physically, intellectually, spiritually. And so I'm walking in and I'm just whistling. First day, I don't know anybody, walking around, going to my class, and I had a nice sort of like a t-shirt. It was a dress shirt. So it's like this ruby red dress shirt. And I'm walking, and then I had this random guy who's like 20 years old come up to me, and he's like, "Hey, excuse me, do you know where this class is?" And I look at him, and I'm like, I'm not sure, man. It's my first day." He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were a professor." I'm like, "What?" And maybe it is my height and my physical attributes, but it was also the fact that the confidence that you projected. So another thing is, like, I'm getting out of my car when I parked. So I'm getting out, and I'm whistling. I'm all happy. I don't know where any class is, but I know that I'll figure that class is. It's easy, you know, there's stuff happening on the other side of the world, like people dying. Of course I'll be able to figure out what the class is. So as I'm walking, this other dude, like a full-on like 25-year-old bearded man, he's so like, he's shaking. He's like, what the hell, bro? Like, you're a 22-year-old grown-ass man, and you're acting like a damn kid, bro. What the? Of course, I've never been to this campus either. But I'm not, like, what the hell is, why are you so pathetic? Like, you're gonna find a class, chill out. Don't like get mustard, are you a man or not a man? You know, like, it's stupid. It kind of annoys me sometimes that you have these imbeciles that act like this. So 10 is be more appealing to nobler motives. The reason you do this is because there's two reasons that usually humans do things. So number one is it's because it sounds good, and number two is because it's real. So let's say you're applying for a job, and like the first thing is you're not gonna walk in the interviewer's office and be like, I like the pay, I want to work here. Of course you do, but you keep that in the back of your mind. What you say instead is you say, I like the environment, I like to help people, I'm, you know, maybe you list some physical characteristics like I'm strong, I'm, you know, whatever, and only then you might mention the fact that, well, this job also pays well, so I would like to work here. But you never start out with that because you want to appeal with more nobler motives. Because again, there's a good quote. It says, when no info can be secured about the customer, now this is like Dale is talking in terms of business sense, the only thing you can do is assume that the person has noble motives and that he's fair and honest, because that's what we all want to assume. And funny enough, in most cases, that's not the case. Because humans are just like, we're just parasites, bro. We never want to be like, you know, we don't want to do something unless you're like highly religious or something. But you never like do stuff just to make somebody happy. There's usually some kind of self-interest involved, and that's perfectly okay. That's good. That's how we survived and evolved. If we didn't have this, we would die off as a species because we would not be able to secure our ground and fight the animals. Next. Another good point is 11, you have to dramatize things, so you can't just be a normal guy nowadays. And it's super easy because social media and stuff, it over dramatizes. That's what TV advertisements do. That's what, you know, those ads for some juice, you know, you drink the juice and the guy like explodes with freaking wings or whatever the hell. It kind of works. Like, I'm not gonna lie, when I was little, I had those, what was that drink? I forget. Goddamn, it was like, I think it was a candy bar. It was like Mamba, which is like the candy bar. They had like some guy who ate it and he turned into like a hippopotamus or whatever the heck. And I'm like, damn, I gotta try this, you know. I was like a little dude and I was like, wow, I'm gonna turn into a hippopotamus. We're more attracted, that's what it is. So we're more attracted to people who are more enthusiastic. And you can implement this with social media because nowadays, how do you think Tate got popular? Think about any movie personnel or any like celebrity. They're always, any single person, like celebrity, they're always dramatic. Drama is what we thrive on, even though it's a feminine thing. Maybe Stoics don't like it, but drama is what fuels the world. And the way you can practice this is, number one, learn to tell more enthusiastic stories. So whenever you talk, you can use stories. And number two is you can use, maybe incorporate hand gestures. So kind of talk with a little bit more finesse, you know, passion. Because think about it, let's say you're an employer and you have a employee who is like coming in, he's like, hey, I'm John and I'm here to work. I will be a good worker. I got, you know, A's in high school. And another guy comes in, he's like, let's say he had maybe very minimal high school education. Maybe he just finished high school. He finished high school, let's say, and he didn't go into bachelor's, master's, but he comes in and he's like, oh, I'm here to do anything to make this job better, and I will do anything. I will grind day and night. The guy, the manager, is gonna be like, holy cow, like, damn, that's like, who is this guy, you know? Let's talk. So it will arouse his interest because it's more dramatic. So he's gonna say like, damn, well, this guy sounds like he's serious, you know? So stuff like that, very interesting, but very useful. Again, we've got a hydration break. Better hydrate. When was the last time you drank water, huh? Probably a long time ago. Well, I'll wait for you. I'll drink with you. "12 is throwing down a challenge. The way you can do this is, Dale says you can obviously make this, if you're a manager or a boss or an owner of a company, it's easier because then you can have like, he gives an example, the morning shift that tried to outcompete the evening shift in a job. And so it was like vice versa. They would try to outcompete each other. But the best way to use it is just for yourself. You know what I personally do when I go to the gym, for example, and it's important to be in the zone. Like, there's a guide, I think it was released recently by this guy named Hamza. It's a discipline guide. Watch it if you haven't watched it. But again, what I like to do is, the way I motivate myself is I have a lock screen of Karelin. He's like a Russian wrestler. I think he won, it was from 1989 if I'm not mistaken, to like 2003. He's never lost. Absolute unit of a guy. He's like a monster. So whenever I feel like I'm, out, then I would just look at the home screen and I'll say like, would Karelin do this? Did Karelin like this? Did Karelin, like feel like doing this extra rep? Like, no, he didn't, but he still did it, So stuff like that. You can have maybe, it's perfectly fine. It's not weird, no matter what anybody tells you, to take a picture of somebody, you might want to outcompete. Make sure it's not too big, because if it's too big, you're going to start to, like, feel too intimidated. But make sure it's someone who's not too big, but who you can still outcompete, and you can put a picture of them on your wall, and every time you wake up, or on your phone screen, excuse me, and you can just look at them and be like, yeah, I'll get this guy. Because you gotta remember, successful people are extreme. They are damn extreme. There's not a balanced person. If it's your mom, your dad, and I'm not trying to offend them. Think about any successful person, anybody. They usually have a crazy graphic. Like for me, what I used to do is, for working out, so whenever I'd have a busy day, I would have to work out. But I'm like, well, what do I do? So I have to go late in the gym, which I don't recommend, because, did I say late in the gym? No, I'm sorry. You go late in the night to the gym. But I'm not even going to edit that out. I'll be authentic as hell. But I would go to the gym because I still need to work out. And when I would come back, my family's already sleeping. And they would be like, what the hell are you doing? Rustam, you're a dumbass. Like, you have to come in earlier. You stupid ass, So, but it actually makes you more into like a stronger person, because it makes you get more success, because some stuff I can't do in the evening, like going to work, because work is at specific times. So you go to work and then you do whatever you can afterwards, and it is a little bit unbalanced, but that's how you become successful. For example, sleeping, sometimes I would have days where I get not a lot of sleep because I have maybe a client for window washing and I have to do stuff. But then other days I'll maybe sleep in a little bit more. And there's a lot of minute stuff, like for example, you can't have too drastically of a difference between your sleep, because then it messes up your immune system. But I'm talking in terms of like 2 hours of sleep. Like instead of sleeping 8 hours, I might get 6 hours, stuff like that. Next, there's just a teeny bit left. Now what we discuss here is in part 4, we have the sort of influencing people with them not even like being offended. So the way you do this is you praise them first. So this is like your classic, you're such a good person, but that but, honestly, I don't know about you. For me, that but already is like, okay, you're a fake. Like, I don't like to hear that but. When somebody says, you're such a hard worker, we need you, but you could do this, that's already a turn off for me, and it's probably a lot for other people. So what I would say is replace the but with the and. And. Don't say but, say and. You're such a wise man. I'll give you an example. You're such a hard worker, and you're super professional to the employees, but we could have you work a little bit more faster. Versus, you're such a hard-working, you're such a professional, very polite employee, and we would love to see if you could also be more enthusiastic. That sounds a lot better, doesn't it? Doesn't it? It's basic psychology. It's easy stuff. Sometimes the difference is in just one word. And now you know this too. Please use it. You're welcome. Talk about your mistakes before criticizing others. Remember that you were young at some point. Some point you were just growing. Before you got to this length, you maybe used to be like this length. And only then you got extended. But whenever you go back in your memory lane. The person who is at this level versus this level doesn't understand you sometimes, but you understand that person, and this is where the power comes from oftentimes, because you can say your past mistakes. It'll make the other person feel better. Say like, when I was your age, don't just say like, when I was your age I used to move bricks, man. When I was your age I used to jump in the fire, man. When I was your age I could fly, I could be invisible, man. When I was your age I used to shoot up to the moon. It's less stupid stuff. Instead of saying that, say, yeah, you actually did it pretty good. If you're doing pottery, for example, when I was your age I could hardly make a pot out of clay. Like, my pots would always fall. And then give them some advice using "and," for example, or some other tactic that you've learned previously. You have a lot of knowledge, man. I'm glad you have this knowledge. You should be glad you have this knowledge to use this, and most importantly, don't forget this. But again, it's that kind of dynamic. So what you can also do is you can also ask questions instead of giving orders. So it sounds a little bit hard, but in reality, all that you do is you just give suggestions. So it's not like those weird stuff where it's like, well, what do you think? Somebody's like, hey, what are trees made of? It's like, well, what do you think trees are made of? It's like, well, why is the grass green? Why do you think the grass is green? It's not that stuff. That's some retarded stuff. Excuse me. But it's kind of stuff like you suggest the person does something. So you say, perhaps it's like this. It's, again, very similar to previously, to not necessarily making the other person have the credit. So you talk and you kind of give the person questions. Like, let's say back in the 90s it was also a lot harder versus doing it today. So instead of saying, like, do you think this, instead of saying clean this thing, you say, maybe this counter needs a little bit cleaning. You'll be like, yeah, I think this counter does need a lot of cleaning. And a lot of managers use this nowadays. Personal experience, I've had that. A lot of people, like, they use that trick on me. It's like, maybe you should go, like, do you think any aisles out here need, maintenance of, like, shelving something? You'll say, yeah, I think they do. So it's stuff like that versus saying, go, put the food on the shelves or reorganize the shelves. So a little bit softer, and I'm kind of guilty of this myself. I've not used this a lot of the times, but it's very helpful, even in family settings. Maybe you can actually outcompete me. If you use this technique a little bit more often than me, you'll probably be able to talk to people a lot better than me. And I'm pretty good at talking to people, so that's a challenge for you. You gotta strive, and you'll outcompete me if you work hard. Only if you work hard, and only if you're extreme, because I'm pretty extreme as well. But alright, I'm done bragging. Okay, you're actually, like, if you're watching this, you 100% are on the right path. There's just no better path than this. There's nothing better to watch on YouTube than stuff like this. Praise every improvement that the person makes. This is so similar to a book called The Way of the Superior Man. Reading, especially with women, I instantly thought of women. So the way Dale Carnegie says, he says, dogs, if you train dogs in, like, bringing you a treat, it reinforces the good behavior. They bring you a stick, you give them a treat, or some dog bone. That's not the reason I thought about women. The reason I thought about women is because women are specifically more emotional creatures, and again, not all but most. And when you praise a woman, that's one of the best things you can do. I honestly forget which chapter it is, but the book called The Way of the Superior Man. I recommend it if you want to become better with women, become a real superior man. Read it. I don't know if I'll do a review. I think if you want a review on that, the guy Hamza, he made a review on this book. But again, it's like 41 minutes. Read that, look at that if you want. But more importantly is what's cool is you can use this in any person. So whenever you improve, like whenever, let's say they do something good, you praise them. You say, thank you, man, I appreciate you so much. And you give them genuine praise. This reinforces a circuit. It's a primal thing. It's psychology. It's in our brain, so it reinforces the good behavior in our brain, and we feel a lot better. Last 3 laws, I'll make them quick. So you gotta make the other person inspired. That's number 7. Make the person inspired personally. You gotta tell them about their bloodline. Tell them about the people that were, showing pictures of the World War II, how, their great grandfather fought in World War II. Maybe show them pictures of, their mom's side grandfather, your father's, mother's side grandfather, or whatever. So make them inspired. For example, from me, what inspired me a lot is when I saw pictures of my great grandfather from my grandpa, how he used to bend horse hooves. So he would pick up those horse hooves and he would just bend it. Like, that's insane. That's crazy. Back in Russia, bro. Freaking. So maybe that's why I'm not bad at arm. If you wanna arm wrestle me, message me. No, I'm kidding. But again, like, it's stuff like that that really makes you inspiring. You're like, how could I be such a bum and offend those people? Because those people are still somewhere. Like, I gotta live up to the reputation. It sparks something in you. You're like, like, ooh, I'm gonna destroy them. So stuff like that. But then you can also use encouragement and make the other person full of self-esteem. So, like, you have two dance academies. One dance academy, you walk in and they say, your method of dancing is a little bit old, and you need to redo your whole dancing method. And you can say, well, okay. And then you go to the other dance instructor and she says, whoa, you can dance, you actually have some knowledge. It's a little bit interesting because it's of an older style, but if you take this course, you'll be an even better dancer. Of course, you would want to go to the second dance studio because they will teach you. Completely different approach. I like this about America, actually. A lot of European stuff, if you go to like a music teacher, they will just kind of say like, you have to play like this, curl your fingers. Like, if you're playing piano, maybe you know this. Like, keep your fingers curled, So, versus some guy who's like in America, you come in, he's some guitarist, he gives you like a slice of pizza, like, yeah man, let's play something. I've had that experience personally. So he gives you like a slice of pizza, he's like, yeah, let's play, what do you want to play? Yeah, let's play some cool stuff. You play, it makes you feel better, and it makes you more kind of enjoy the process, which is kind of what we want in most cases. Finally, we have the last law is kind of making the other person feel more encouraged. Now, what you could do here is, it's a little bit weird, a little bit risky, I would say. He's like, you can promote, Dale Carnegie, I mean, he says you can promote the other person to a higher position who's, let's say a person has been working at a job and his quality of work is starting to go down. If you promote that person to a bigger position and tell them how valuable they are, then you basically just made that person feel better, and maybe he will obviously start working a little bit more and faster, and he'll start taking more responsibility at his job. And if not, you can just fire him, bro. Screw that motherfucker, just nah, we don't need people like that. If not, you can just fire him. Alright, bro, I'll see you.